So you can remember this position, these four pieces placement and this rook placement. This is going to be our like main theme. We'll be always learning this particular position. You need to achieve this. Once you have this one, you are able to do checkmate. Of course, there is no difference if the rook is, let's say, here, or this rook is here. It will be directly checkmate. So now what we have to do is, first thing we have to do is, we are learning what happens if this thing happens in the central files, like either on the D or in the E file. Then we'll be learning what happens in the C file, and what happens in the you can say bishop file, then the knights file, and then in the end rook's file. Okay, so let's start with the
So
uh,
Shubham,
yeah, please.
um, in all of these files, the checkmate is possible, right?
No, not all of this. In the knights file, checkmate is not possible. In other
Okay.
files, checkmate is possible. We will seeing
Okay.
that there are some maneuver which we need to do, which is
Mhm.
not possible in the knight file.
So theoretically, in the knights, if it's the knight file, it's a draw. But if
It's a
it's
draw.
any other file, it's a win.
It's a win. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
in this file it's a draw, and same way this is also a draw. Otherwise, it's winning.
And so
Okay,
Shubham,
so
one more
yeah,
stupid
please,
question.
please. No problem.
Uh, that this is a theoretical endgame, right?
This
In
is a
some sense.
theoretical. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a theoretical game. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to claim the seventh rank. You see, this seventh rank we need to claim from the opponent. Right now,
Mhm.
he has the claim of seventh rank. What we do is we give a check, has to go back, and we just come back to the F7. This is what we are gonna do to claim the seventh rank. Now it's their turn, and you can notice I've already highlighted here. Opponent doesn't have any other move than the one that are highlighted on the board. He can move the rook to h1, h5. Of course, he cannot go to z8. He can go to king c8. He can go to e3. He can go to e2. He can go to e1. So what we'll do is, the best response for him is to go to the second rank. And what we'll do is, our ideal scenario will be opponent coming to the third rank. We'll force him to go to the third rank, and then we'll execute our checkmate plan. So once we force him to go to the second, I mean, he will go to second rank, and if he just play a waiting move, he'll go to the first rank. Okay, he will not try to go to the third rank, but we'll force him to go to the third rank. Okay, yeah. So now let's see how do we. First, we'll see what happens if he just play any bad move. Let's say the king to c8 or rook to, let's say, h8. Let's say with the rook h8, I think all of you can figure out why this is winning immediately. Yeah, we can simply go to rook b a7, and what's happening in there is he's getting checkmated, as well as there is a skewer attack problem. So there is no way he can come out of this, and this is going to end very soon. You can give a check, but of course you have to block with the bishop, and all these squares control. There is a checkmate problem, so there is no better move than to give up the rook for the bishop, and then of course that is anyway winning for white. So let's come back here. Yeah, this position we just discussed. What happened if rook goes to h8? Correct? Is this clear? Any question in this one? Anybody?
Um,
Yeah.
Shubham, going to the G file also would be the same, right?
G file is like is very immediately winning. It's a tactical win.
Okay.
Rook to d7, check, and then you win the rook. You're not even losing anything.
Correct, 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 correct.
So that's why we didn't consider rook z8, directly rook h8, and the rook can also go to any of these three squares. These three squares the best squares for him to stay, and we'll see why only the third rank is good for us. He will try to stay in the second rank, and if we force, then we'll go to the first rank. And at the end, only if he has no choice, then only he will come to the third rank. Okay, so now let's say yeah, we claim the second rank, and after this, let's say he moves the king. Okay, if he moves the king, in that situation, what you can do is, let's say he moves the king. In this situation, this is winning in the same way. You first play rook a7, threatening checkmate, as well as keyword attack you are doing. So the only good option is, if he moves the king, it doesn't do any changes. It is gonna be a checkmate only. So the only best thing he can do is he has to give a check. Rook to d8 check, In this situation, we go to c6. Again, there is a problem of checkmate. The only way to save it is to move the king b8. And after the king goes to b8, you can give a check on b7 to force the king to go on a8. Of course, here c8 is immediately losing due to bishop e6 check. So c8, we are assuming he'll not go. He'll go to a8, and now we have to use a particular maneuver to win the game. We have to move the rook because there is a threat of rook takes bishop, king takes, and then king takes rook. So of course we have to save the rook. The question is where to save the rook. Now the rook has to save the bishop, so rook must go to b5. And the reason why rook should save the bishop is because we want to threaten some checkmate like this. And in that situation, we want the rook to defend the bishop so that the king can go to b6 without any problem. So immediate threat is we are threatening c7 check and win the rook. So he has to. I mean, the rook move anywhere, it doesn't gonna change anything. So he has to come up with the king. But you can give a check to a5. King goes b8, and then the king b6, and there is nothing left. Rook to a8 is checkmate, and the only way to stop it is to give up the rook, or he can give a check, but we blocked the bishop, and it's winning after that. Okay, we just discussed two ideas, not the main lines. We are discussing what happens if the opponent plays weak move. This is the standard position. I will quickly repeat for Yaziv. Rook goes to f8, and the whole idea behind f8 is to claim the 7th rank. So we got the control of 7th rank. Now opponent can play some of the moves here. I can show it over here. So these are the moves. Out of this, rook to h8 is losing instantly after rook a7, and king to c8 is losing with some technique you have to use here. Here you have to first go to a7, and opponent has to give a check. There is no better choice. Like he moves the king, then also he's getting checkmated. So he has to give a check only, and king to c6. And again, there is no better move than to escape with the king. So king b8, you have to give a check. And the reason why you give check, because we have to always make a threat here. Otherwise, once the king escapes out, there is no way we are able to again achieve a checkmating position. So rook to b8, b7. King has to go to a8, of course, not c8. And the reason is very simple, because of bishop to e6 check. So king goes to a8, and now rook to b6, defending the bishop, threatening king b6, checkmating ideas. So opponent doesn't have any useful checks like rook c8, or these two doesn't do any damage. So king has to escape. Rook a5 check. Uh, yeah, forcing him to go to b8 and king to b6. And now the rook from the 5th rank nicely defends the bishop, so we don't have to worry about the bishop. So the checkmate threat is on a8, and the only best thing he can do is to capture the bishop, which only delays the checkmate but doesn't stop it. Okay, so two bad moves we figured out. Any doubt in this one? Because the
Okay, repeat the first case.
first case, okay. The first is if the opponent, we have, let's say, this is the beginning position that you have to keep in mind. So what you have to do is you have to first claim the 7th rank from opponent. So you give a check, rook goes back, and then you come to the 7th rank. We got the claim of 7th rank, and now opponent has few choices that are highlighted: king c8, rook h8, and then rook to e3, e2, or e1. We're learning these two things. What happens if the king goes here, or rook goes to h8? These are actually bad moves, loses immediately. But the most like you can say maximum resistance that moves gives is rook to e2. So he will try to stay on 2nd rank or 1st rank, but will force him to go to the 3rd rank at some point, and then will execute our actual checkmate maneuver. So we just discussed like what happened if the king goes to c8, or if the rook goes to h8. Of course, rook to g8 is losing immediately due to discovered attack on the rook. Okay, no question in this one. Anybody? Yes, you have.
Yes, it is clear.
Okay, perfectly. Okay,
Acha,
now
one quick question I have.
yeah, please, yeah, tell.
Um,
We only discuss
so if the
in this.
rook is like on some other files from the start, So we
Okay,
act
from the beginning. Yeah,
yeah.
like this is the beginning position.
No, no. So assume that instead of this beginning, he had maybe rook on e2,
Here.
the black one,
Yeah, you're saying rook e2
e2,
already.
e2. Already.
So it's the same
So,
thing now. You give a check and then come to the seventh rank.
acha, so anywhere the rook is, you have to like our first sub task
Claim the
would be
seventh
to
rank.
bring the rook in the
Yeah,
seventh rank.
our rook. Yes, that is the only way we are cutting off the king.
Okay.
So we have to
Okay.
claim the seventh rank so that opponent is not able to use it.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, if the rook is anywhere else, you can directly go to the seventh rank. But in this situation, you cannot play seventh rank directly due to they just trade. So that is the
Okay.
reason we are seeing this. Okay. So now let's see what happens if they try to play a better move. Let's say they do not go um, after this move. They play rook e3. This is the worst thing they can play if they want to go into these three lines. But here we'll learn one particular maneuver. Once the rook is in the third rank, then we'll be using this technique. Okay. You might ask, like, what if the rook goes to the first or second rank? If the rook goes to the first or second rank, we'll force him to go to the third rank, and then we'll be using this technique that we are just going to learn. So if the rook directly comes to the third rank, this is good for us. Now we can immediately we can execute our checkmating ideas from here. So what you have to do is, you see there are two sides of the board, this side and this side. One by one, we'll be shifting the rook to both side of the board. What we'll do is, we'll first give a check to the king in this position, rook check. And the idea is you have to force the king to go to e8. You can ask, like, what if c8? Yeah, c8 is actually easy to win because then you have rook to a7. Yeah. So let's say king goes to e8. Now what we can do is, you notice uh, this line is taken. This square is taken. This square is taken. This is taken by the king, and this is also taken by the king. So if we threaten checkmate from the seventh rank, or let's say a7 or b7, so the only defense he can make is to skip with the king. There is no other better defense he can play. That is the only thing he can do. So he has to go to f7 or f8. No better move. And now, once we have this move, king on f8, then you come back and give a check. The king has to go to e8, of course, not g8, because there is again discord attack. So king has to go e8, and you got this position. You might ask, what is the difference? The difference is, it is our turn. Earlier, it was not our turn. This position, now it is our turn. So here, now you see, we have to again move the rook. Where to move the rook? We'll go to f4. This is a very key move that you have to remember, because we want to play bishop check and then deliver checkmate. What is it stopping us? The
Why
two
not
things that are,
f6?
why not?
F6 or f5?
Uh, yeah, that's a good question. The reason behind that is because once the rook blocks the gives a check with the rook gives a check, so we need to block with the bishop, right? So the problem is, let's say you go to the sixth rank. Let's say you go to the third, second rank. It doesn't matter. Now the rook can stop you, and now you cannot threaten checkmate. That is the problem. So what you can do is, you come to the fourth rank. I'll show you why this is very important. After rook f4, you see, now we are threatening give a check and deliver checkmate, and it's not stoppable. Like, what they can do is, they can just pin us. Yeah, if they pin us now, then you can go to z4, and there is no way to stop the checkmate. Yeah, is this clear? I'll repeat it again because this one is very complicated. You see,
This is
first,
okay, but the same can be done for f5 also.
same thing we can do on
F5.
f5. No, actually, you cannot do on f5. Same thing you cannot do on f5. Yeah, let's see. Rook check, rook goes to e8. We come to the seventh rank. Now let's say rook goes to e3. We are learning this e3 directly because we'll later learn how to force him to go to the third rank. So once the rook is in the third rank, then we have to use this particular maneuver. That is, you go on 7 check, and the king has to go to e8. Of course, c8 loses due to rook a7. So king goes to e8. Once the king goes to e8, of course, these four squares are taken. So you can go to b7 or a7, forcing him to go to the f8. After king goes to f8, then you go to f7 check, forcing him again to e8. And this time you can go to f4. And the reason why this works now, because let's say he play any waiting move. What we are threatening is bishop to c6 check and then checkmate, correct? Yeah, let's say you go to which rank you want to go? Sixth rank.
Fifth
Fifth,
rank,
fifth,
F5.
fifth. Rook F5.
Okay, fifth rank. Okay. So this position, the king can go back to the same square. That is the problem. And the difference between
The
this one
king
is
can go for F4 also, it can go back.
no, yeah, this is the difference. If the king goes to f4 now, then you have bishop e4, and the rook defends the bishop. That is the difference. And this checkmate is unstoppable.
And for F6 also, it can go to bishop E6.
No, you cannot go to f6. No, you
No,
are not
if
able to play. See, you are able to play bishop to e4 only because rook is on f4. Let's say you go to f6, king goes back. You cannot play this move. You just take your bishop.
no, if rook F6, then also bishop E6 is a possibility.
Rook f6. Um, okay, you are saying king goes here, then
Bishop
bishop e3.
E6.
Then they give check from behind.
Then block like bishop D5.
Okay, and then they just go to e3, and you're not able to make progress. So we need to deal with two things. One is to give stop them from giving check from behind, and also block their access to the king. That can be achieved from once you go to the
एक बार rook F4 वाला बनाना.
yeah, once you go to f4th
यहाँ
rank.
पे अगर F5 पे जाते हैं, now rook F5.
Uh, okay, immediately it's the same problem. If you go
No,
rook f5,
before this. Now rook F5.
yeah, the king goes back.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so this rook
Even
f4 does two tasks. It
Yeah, bishop
allows you
E4
to
is a possibility.
yeah. Okay, any question in this one?
Yeah, Shubham, first tell the F4 one part only. Then we can
Okay,
analyze all things really better, no? Hello?
yeah, why f4 now? You're asking why
Yeah,
f4.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Why F4 first? Yeah.
Okay, so the reason behind f4 is we want to play bishop e4 to stop the rook access to the 8th rank. The same bishop e4 we are not able to play if the rook is somewhere else on the same line. Right now we are able to play bishop e4 just because rook is on f4. If you remember one previous problem, let's go to this one.
Because it will cover the square of D3 also, right?
Yes, that also covers the d3 square. That's very important. Like in this position, you remember after once we have the king goes moves here. If the king moves, we remember we go to we give a check, and here we are moving the rook to 5th rank only, not any other rank, because the rook needs to defend the bishop. Then only we are able to move the king. Yeah, now the king is able to move, threaten checkmate, just because bishop is defended. So same thing we are doing here also. Yeah, in this one, because this one not. Yeah, here we need to give check, and after this we have to go to the 4th rank only, so that once we play bishop e4, bishop is actually defended. That is the difference. Okay, so after we go here, now opponent has I mean immediate threat is to give a check and then do checkmate. So what can they do is they can just pin the bishop. But once they pin the bishop, the problem is you notice Yazi is running again. The problem is rook was stopping us from going in this line, but now we have access to g4, and there is no way to stop this checkmate. And you notice the bishop covers this square nicely, so the rook cannot go here, and there is no defense. So that is the reason why the opponent rook we need on the 3rd rank, so that the rook doesn't have access to the this f3 square. Yeah. Once we dip in the, if they do not pin, if they directly move the rook somewhere, let's say they go anywhere in the same line, then we have a check of bishop and then checkmate with the rook. Yeah, this one is clear. How to win if the rook goes to the third rank from the beginning position after we claim the seventh rank. Once we claim the seventh
So
rank,
for black, the third
yeah,
and second rank is same.
no,
The
third rank,
perspective is
second rank,
same.
first rank, all is different.
Third,
The
second,
third rank,
first, all three.
yeah, all three are different. In the third rank, it's easy to win for us. So they will try to go to the second or the first rank. I mean, they will first try to go to the second rank because that is where they'll provide the maximum resistance. We'll force them to go to the first rank, and then we'll force them to go to the third rank. So, and then we'll try to execute the same thing that we are doing now, the same checkmate pattern. So we are learning like how to win if the rook goes to the third rank. If the rook goes to the third rank, then what you can do is you give a check first and force the king to go to, of course, king c8 loses immediately because he's going to the short side of the board. Then you have rook a7 and there is just not enough defense. You see this square is taken and there is nothing they can do to stop it. So they have to go to the uh, I mean the long side of the board, or you can see the bigger wing of the board. So they have to go to e8. Now we have to force them to go to f8 by placing the rook to b7 or a7. In this situation, it doesn't matter. And now they are forced to go to f8, no choice. And then you have to go f7 check. After king goes to e8, then to the fourth rank. And this is the winning position. They are in zugzwang and there is nothing they can play except rook d3, which wins the game by rook g4.
Shivam, just tell me one more thing. The rook you have taken to b7 also, na? B7. Can you?
Yeah, yeah. So at this
Why not
position,
c7? Why not c7?
okay, we can try. You're saying if the rook goes to the third rank, rook check, king here, rook c7, the king comes back and attack you. So at least you need to go to b7 or a7 so that you threaten checkmate. If you go c7, the king will come just
Okay,
back
okay,
and attack
okay,
you.
okay, right.
Yeah, and there is
And why
you're
not?
not threatening.
And why not this one's s7 and all these? This one s7 g7.
Yeah, this side, if you try to go, the rook will. Okay, let's say you try to go this way. The problem is you're not threatening anything. If you go this side, let's say you go to g7, the king goes back, and again the same defensive technique they are using. So we are
Okay.
forcing them to go to outside. It's like you're forcing a, let's say, a mouse to go outside his den, not den, I mean whatever the thing is. He comes outside and then we trap him. So it's something like that. So you force him to go e8, then you go to b7, threaten checkmate, force him to go to f8, and then of course not b8, that just in a draw. King goes to e8 and then to f4. That's a very important technique that we'll be using with the idea of bishop to e4, which cuts off the defense if the king goes back. Yeah, so if they just play any random move, I mean, the threat is to give a check and play rook to f4 checkmate. And if they block, then we have rook g4 and there is nothing they can do. Okay, this one is clear, like what to do in the third rank, how to win the game in the third rank if the rook is in the third rank.
Yeah.
After we claim the second rank, seventh rank, if they go to the third rank, then how to win is you start with a check, force him to go to the long side, then you go to the short side, deliver a checkmate, the king has to escape, you give check, and then come to the fourth rank. Okay, now we'll see what happens if the opponent doesn't go to the e3. If he plays any in between move, let's say we go e8, and after this f7, we come to the seventh rank, we claim the seventh rank. Now we'll see what happens if the rook goes to the second rank. Third rank we just saw, and we'll be using the same technique again. We'll see in some time what happens once we force the rook to go to the third rank. We'll be executing the same technique. So this time we are learning what happened. Rook go to the second rank. After the rook goes to second rank, you just play a waiting move to force him to go to the first rank. That's very easy. Like you just play a waiting move, g7 or h7, it doesn't matter. Rook has to go to the first rank or third rank. In this situation, he'll go to the first rank only. If he goes to the third rank,
Why not E8?
if he goes e8, okay, that's a
Hmm.
good question. What is the way to win the game? Simple, rook a7.
Okay,
That just ends the game.
that is
So
simple checkmate. Yeah.
yeah. So the rook has to. We just played a waiting move. So now the rook has to either go to the first rank or the third rank. If they go to the third rank, again same technique, give check, force the king go to e8, then threaten checkmate. King has to go to f8, come back and give check, and then play rook f4. That is the winning technique. So this time they'll say okay, and they'll not go to the third rank. Instead, they will simply move the rook to the first rank. Okay, if they move the rook to the first rank, now what we'll do is we need to force them to go to the third rank. How do you force them to go to the third rank? We shift the rook to the shorter side. Let's say we go b7. Okay, now we are forcing the rook to come to the first c5. There is no other better move. We'll see in this situation what happens if they just play the king move. I mean, this thing we'll see first. Here they have to play rook to c1 only. If they play king to c8, we are going to learn that what happens if they just play a weaker move, king c8. This one loses instantly because you can play rook a7, and of course you are threatening checkmate. And the only thing they can do to stop checkmate is they have to play rook b1, and this one actually loses the rook by force. You just need to play rook f7, g7, or h7, and let's say you go f7, and you are threatening to checkmate, and the only way to escape this is to move the king again. But this loses the rook. You can give a check. King goes to a7. This time only we are giving the check from the 8th rank, and check, check, and we lose the rook. Okay, so
Okay.
let's see. Yeah, so first we force them to go to the first rank, then we shift the rook to the other side of the board so that the rook come to the c file and protect from the same square c8, similar square c8. But if they play a bad move, king c8, in that situation, you have to go to the other side of the board, threaten checkmate, not other immediately. You go to a7, threaten checkmate. So the rook comes here, and now once the rook comes to b1, then only you go to the other side and you win the rook this way, not there. a8 goes to b8, and then you win the rook. But let's learn what happens if they play the correctly. If they play rook to c1 instead of king to c8, if they play rook to c1, so again, what is the task? Is task here is to force them to go to the third rank, because that is the only situation where we know that we are going to win. So how do we force them to go to the third rank is very important. Now again, this move is actually very difficult, that nobody finds by themselves. This was like you cannot find it. Like if you give like 10 choices to make, probably you will not find. So I'll just tell you like what is the move. The move is bishop to b3. You have to find this maneuver, very important maneuver. And
Why not
bish-
bishop e6 or c6? Like
opponent
it
will
looks more tempting.
opponent will give check to you, and you cannot hide. So once you play bishop b3, you are taking away the checking square from him. And you notice the king cannot make a move. I mean, he can go to c8. We'll see what happens if the king goes to c8. That also loses instantly. If they want to play the
Then
rook has
rook
only one
c3,
square. Yeah, that is the
rook
only square.
c3.
This is the thing we want. Once the rook goes to the third rank, then we can execute our checkmating ideas. So let's say rook goes to c3. Now what you can do is
No,
you can play.
but he can go to king to C8 also, na?
Yeah, definitely. These two moves are playable. King c8 loses actually even faster. We'll see what to do against king c8. But let's see if they play rook c3. If they play rook c3, then you again go bishop to e6. We're threatening checkmate. So the only move is they have to play bishop to. Of course, they cannot play any other thing. So they have to give a check. Then you can block with the bishop. And now only move is they have to come back. If they go here, then of course you can just move your rook away, and then you are threatening checkmate, which is unstoppable. So rook has to go to c3, and now you notice you
No,
reach
Shubham,
exact same
just want to do
position. Yeah.
one thing in it. Can you
Yes. Yes.
go one step backwards? Yeah. No, no, no. Bishop 2, yeah, d5.
B3. We played bishop b3.
D5.
After
Yeah.
they came here, we played bishop b3. They attacked our bishop. Then we played bishop to e6, threatening checkmate. So they have to give a check. Then we block back.
Yes. But now if we can play king to c8, black one,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
just sacrifices bishop, we
No,
just kill
it's
the.
our turn. It's our turn.
Okay.
So
Rook
what we can do,
a7.
rook
I will
a7.
play a7. Okay.
Yeah,
ठीक
we
है, ठीक
just
है.
discussed this exact same thing, and there is no
हम्म,
defense of checkmate.
हम्म, right, 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 right. Okay,
So
ठीक है.
yeah, so here after bishop e6, the rook has to give a check. We block with the bishop, and rook c3 is something he has to play. And you remember the exact same position we had with the rook on e3 and rook on g3. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah, exact same position. What we did once the rook is on the third rank, I will repeat it again. Um,
Now
uh,
again G7, 7
yeah,
stuff.
once we have a rook on the third rank, then we give a check to them. Okay, once we give a check to them, they will try to go to the longer side of
C5.
the which side? C8 or
Why not
f8?
C8? Okay, okay,
C8
understood.
actually loses instantly after.
Loses faster, yes. After A7.
Yeah, is that? No, I don't think.
No,
No,
G7, not H7.
this is the
Then
right move they can play. So if they go to e8, this one loses instantly.
King E8 loses
This one loses. Yeah, king e8 loses
faster.
instantly, not c8. So the best thing they can play
Yes,
is play
C8.
rook c8, king c8 only. So this time you can go to g7 or
G7. Yes.
f7, threatening checkmate. So now the only choice is to play the move. Which move? They can escape with the king. Yeah, there is no better move.
B8.
Yeah, this time we give a check.
Now check. Rook
So since
A7, Rook
then
A8.
you remember the move? Rook to the fourth rank.
Yes. Rook
So
B4.
this, yeah, rook b4, and now it's they have to make a
Why
choice.
can't we give a check first?
From where you'll give a check.
No, back. Previous move.
We already gave a check, no? We already gave a check,
Okay,
and
okay.
after
I
giving
thought
this
that
move,
it'll be like
then we go
King
to.
B8, check, King A7, King A8, Rook A8 check, then King B6 and
We
winning the
can go
move.
to a7 also, na, in it.
You cannot
Rook
go
to
eight.
a.
You are losing the rook directly due to the bishop check. There is a bishop here, no? In the you are placing the king in the line of bishop. Not a good strategy. So you give a check. First the king goes c8, and then you come to the fourth rank with the idea of bishop c5, c4 in future. So the opponent has to make a decision again.
Here only I'm saying we can go to a7 also, na. Rook to white rook to a7 also.
Mm,
Yeah, a7.
after
No, no.
after they play this move,
Yes, a7.
then the king goes back, and they are defending this square. But in this position, after you play this move, now the king cannot go back because then you have bishop c4 maneuver. The same maneuver is not available on other lines. Getting? You are able to play bishop c4 due to the rook on b4. That is the problem. Okay, and if you let's say you try this thing, and after the let's say the king goes to uh, yeah, if you go a7, they can just play king d8, and there is nothing happening. So you have to play bishop rook here, and then you are threatening checkmate. And if they try to defend it, then there is bishop c4, and it seems like they are defending. They can come out, but then you have a check and then checkmate. I mean, they have to block, and then you take it. Okay, so I think this one is clear. What happens if the rook is in the third rank? Then how to win the game? Yeah, if the rook is in the third rank, then we can win the game by, let me show you again. Yeah, first we claim the second rank, seventh rank. Once we have the claim of seventh rank, the rook tries to, let's say, go to the third rank. In that situation, you have to give a check, force the king to go to e8. Then we go to b7 or a7, and we are forcing the king goes to f8. And after rook f7 check, again forcing them to go to e8, you come to the fourth rank.
F4.
Yeah. And now we'll see what happens if the rook doesn't go to the third rank. He tries to go to the best square, that is the second rank. If he goes to the second rank, you just play a waiting move. Now he doesn't have choice. He has to go to the first rank. Once he goes to the first rank, now we'll force him to go to the third rank by going to the other side of the board. Let's say we go to a7 or b7. Which one? I think both works. There is no problem. Yeah. What is this? Yeah. We go to a7. So the only move is again rook c1. There is no better move. We'll see what happens. King c8. Rook goes to c1. And then we have bishop to b3. And after rook to c3 that we just saw, then we start with the check and we execute the same ideas once the rook is in the third rank. Okay. Is this clear? Like how to force the rook from second rank to first? Second rank to first rank is very easy. Just play a waiting move. Yeah. After they are second rank, you just play a waiting move. The rook has to go to the first rank. No choice. And then you shift the rook to the other side of the board. And then they have to go to the other wing. And after that, you have to play this very important maneuver to force them to go to the third rank, bishop to b3. And to gain the move, like it's our turn, but the problem is our pieces are hanging. Like we move the rook, then the bishop hangs. So what we do is we threaten checkmate. They have to give a check. We block back, and after rook goes to the third rank, now bishop is no longer hanging. We have forced them to go to the third rank, and now it's our turn.
Now after
So
bishop b3, it is rook c3, and then
bishop b3, rook c3. Yeah, rook c3. Then you go bishop e6 to gain extra move, because they have to give check, and then we block back with the bishop. Again, they have to go to c3, and after c3, now we can execute the same technique of checkmate. Now everything is well placed. Opponent rook is in the third rank, and we can execute the checkmate idea by going rook d7, forcing them to go to c8. We go to the other side of the board. They go to b8. We give a check. King has to go to c8, and then we come to the fourth rank. Yeah, this thing. Yeah, now clear. Yeah, now let's see what
and
happens
after
if
rook b4, like black plays rook c2 maybe.
rook c2.
Then bishop e6 and rook b8.
Rook c2 is not possible now. Bishop is covering c2 square.
No. At the end, like there is a mate in two, no?
Okay, let's see.
Bishop e6, king d8, and rook b8 mate.
Okay, you're saying
After rook b4,
just a moment. Let me achieve that. Bishop b3,
bishop
rook
b3,
c3.
rook c3,
Yeah, please.
rook
Sure.
c3.
Okay, one by one. Okay, let him clear his doubt. Here, this position rook has to give check. You're saying rook c2 is checkmate in two. He has to give check.
No. At the end, I was saying, like after rook b4 is
He gives check, and he has to come back to c3.
now rook c3, rook b4.
Okay, rook b4 we go. It's his turn. He has to make a move. Let's say he just plays a waiting move. Then you
Yes,
are
now
winning.
rook c1, rook c2, then bishop
Now it's
e6.
winning. Yeah. Oh, wait a second. After the rook goes to c3, now we don't play a waiting move. We have to give a check. That's what we learn. Like we have to force
Check.
them to go into a checkmating situation. We give a check. King goes to c8. This thing we did bishop maneuver to force
Then
the rook to go to the third rank. Once the rook go to the third rank, then we'll using the same technique that we learn in the beginning.
where is the bishop gone?
Yeah, rook check.
Okay.
King there. Now we go to the other side. King has to escape, and after rook to b8, b7, then king c8, and then rook b4. Now this move doesn't do any damage. Actually, it's checkmate in three move. Bishop check, king side, rook check, and then rook takes rook.
Bishop e6, king d8, rook b8.
Yeah, so he cannot do anything. And if he try to play the king move, then the bishop c4. Again, the king move doesn't.
Again, same idea.
Same idea.
Rook
Yeah.
b8 is
So
coming.
we are disconnecting the rook from the back line. Yes, Ankit? Yeah. What are you asking?
Yes, I was just confirming the exact meeting at the end after
Okay.
rook b4.
Yeah, Ankit, you are
Even
asking. Yeah, please.
yeah, I just want to know one thing. You have said ki this move of bishop na b3.
Yeah, bishop b3 is very important. That's you
Yeah.
cannot come up
Can
with
you
this
tell
move.
me the logic and how to find these moves? Like, what is the logic behind it? Proper logic. You said na that
That's
it is difficult to find.
yeah, it's very difficult. Like you won't be able to come up
Yeah.
on the board if you are seeing this. Like
Yeah.
so,
The main logic of this move is to control the squares of this one, na? Like d1. D1.
forcing them to go to the third rank. That is the main idea. Actually, we are not controlling d1 square. We are forcing them to go to the third rank. And yes, on the I mean, this is additional that the rook
No,
cannot give check.
no, no.
You can say
Like, he will not be able to give the check. That is the main point of this move, na? Bishop 1,
yeah,
b3.
yeah. I mean, main point is to force them to go to the third rank. Then only we can execute our checkmating ideas. And bishop b3 also makes sure that the rook cannot come to d1. And now,
But he can
yeah,
go to this thing also, na?
where
Uh,
anywhere he
he,
goes, there is a
rook
checkmate.
2, no, rook to b2 also, he can go, na?
How can you go rook b2? He can go b1,
B1,
but
right.
anyway, there is a checkmate. There is a problem of checkmate. Rook b8 is checkmate immediately.
Okay, checkmate is going. Okay.
Yeah. So
अच्छा,
here,
then
once you play
probably
bishop,
okay.
yeah, once you play bishop b3, you might ask like, if the king goes to c8, what then?
And if he plays c8, king to c8,
Yeah,
then
if the opponent goes to c8 in this situation and not, let's say, not going for the rook c3, then actually it's even winning faster. And the way to win the game is you just come back to b4, and now you're already threatening bishop check and checkmate. So what is the defense they can play? They have to move the king, right? No other choice.
mm,
Yeah, there is no better move. Like the rook move cannot do any damage. I mean, we are threatening check and then checkmate. So only move they
mm,
can play is king to d8. Then we shift the rook again to the other side of the board. Let's say g4 or h4. Which one you want to go?
H4.
Okay, okay, again you are threatening checkmate. So they cannot run because okay. So they have to. What they need to do is they need to come to e file so that they stop the checkmate. They can block it when we deliver checkmate. So after they play rook to e1, let's say here, then we play bishop a4, making sure that this is square we are taking, and also we are stopping them from giving check. So the only thing they can do now is to play run with the king c8. But this time we can again shift the rook to the b4, and there is just no defense of bishop to d7 followed by rook b8. There is zero defense of this move. They can do nothing. I mean, they can sacrifice the rook. That's a different thing, but there is nothing they can do apart from this. Okay, what I will do is I have already made one study of this where I have written all those things in the proper manner, and it's like total 9 chapters, very small chapters, not uh, like not very long chapters. You can go through it also to revise, and then you can play against computer also to understand what is the idea. Okay, so this is the main idea. We are forcing them to go to the um, if they play king c8, then how to win the game is if they play rook to the third rank, then again we threaten checkmate. So they have to give check, and then we execute our same idea, third rank when the rook is in the third rank. And if they play king c8, you just bring the rook back. You're threatening to do checkmating ideas, so the king has to go back, and then you go to h4 as Rishabh mentioned. You're threatening checkmate again, and this move doesn't save. If they go king e8, king e8 doesn't do any damage. Yeah, it's a checkmate in one. So the rook e1 they have to go, and then bishop a4. In this situation, they can only play king c8. Other moves are not helping them. But then we have rook d4, and there is again no defense of bishop d7 followed by rook b8. And there is a question here I just got. What happens after we just bring the rook back? They took the king back, and this position they tried to escape. What can we do? This one is actually winning more quickly. Yeah, do you see the winning idea? Anyone? Like, this is additional thing. Okay, so what you
Just
can do?
1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute.
Okay,
Bishop c4.
bishop c4.
Bishop c4. Bishop a6.
No, king will go to b8. This thing we have already covered. So why
Oh,
is it
rook
going?
h7.
Rook
Rook h7 or maybe
h7.
rook b4 again.
I'm not getting how rook h7 is gonna help you. Rook h7. The king escapes.
Oh, wait, rook h8.
Rook h8 is a check. So the rook h8 actually we use this thing we use only in a situation where we are winning the rook. Rook h8, king goes here. You can give check, but you're not winning the opponent's rook.
But it is checkmate, na Shubham?
How?
King will escape to b7.
How
H8,
rook h8?
do H8.
Rook h8 is not checkmate. King escapes out.
Okay, yeah, bishop d5.
Bishop
Yeah,
d5. Yeah, bishop d5. You're already
then the
threatening
king is
checkmate.
checkmate.
So the king
Yeah.
has to go to b8 only move. Nothing they can do. And
And then
after
the
rook
same.
eight,
Rook
there is
a4.
nothing. A4, yeah, and there is no
Hmm.
defense of rook 8 checkmate. Okay, you have to use the same maneuver multiple times. Now this we already discussed. What happens if the king goes to c8? In this position, if the king goes to c8, we just discussed. What we do is we play rook b4, we shift the rook, and then we play bishop a4. Okay, then we discussed what happens if the rook goes. We force them to go to the third rank by placing the bishop b3 areas, and then we try to threaten checkmate. Rook has to give check, and in the third, this thing you have to remember. Once you have this position, rook on the third rank, and bishop is protecting the king from behind, then you have to execute this checkmate idea. Rook d7 check. King has to go to the same side of the rook. Then you go to the other side of the board. King has to escape, and then you give a check. After king goes to c8, then you come back to b4 this time, so that you can play bishop c4. Yeah, this thing you have to keep in mind. This is very important maneuver. Okay.
Shubham, what is the logic of this maneuver? C8.
Yeah,
C4.
right now there are two defensive methods they can use. One they can move is just king to d8 so that they can defense here. Second defensive method they can use is they can give check. To deal with both, let's say in this situation they can just only move the king. I mean, the immediate threat is to give a check and do checkmate. So they have to move a king. In then we have bishop c4. Yeah, and there is no way of check way to defend this thing, and they cannot give check. If the rook was on the first rank, then rook d1 is a check. But since the rook is on the third rank, there is no rook d3 idea. And again, they cannot come to c8 because of bishop check and followed by checkmate. Okay. So I think we have discussed all the lines. This was the only lines. We have bishop file, exact same checkmate maneuver. There is no difference. You go to the 8th rank, force the rook to go to the 8th rank, come to the 7th rank. After rook goes to the 2nd rank, play a waiting move, force the rook to go to 1st rank. Then we go to the other side of the board, forcing the rook to go to the other side of the board. And then we play the particular maneuver, bishop. Of course, in this situation, bishop a3, forcing the rook go to the 3rd rank. Then what we do is we go d6, threatening checkmate. They have to give a check. We block back with the bishop. Rook has to come to b3. We have forced them to go to the 3rd rank, and this is our like ideal situation where we are able to do checkmate. And the checkmate technique is you have to give a check. They have to go to the side of king. and side of the rook. I mean, then you can go anywhere in this line. Let's say f4. The king has to escape so that they can block with the rook. But this time we give a check. King goes b8. And again, same technique, rook a4. With the idea of blocking with the bishop or giving check on d6. And there is nothing they can do now. Like if they just play a waiting move, then we have bishop to b4. This is checkmate, and there is nothing they can do. They cannot play this because check, I mean bishop check, and then checkmate.
Yeah, bishop d6 check and then rook a8.
Yeah. I mean, this is we are threatening checkmate. The only way to save it is to move the king, but that also loses. Okay, bishop file is actually is exactly same as the center file. The only difference happens, knight file is actually a draw. You cannot do anything. You can try it by yourself. It's just a draw. Yeah, knight's file is draw. You are not able to win the game. So it will be a draw only. You can just play waiting move. Nothing gonna happen. It will be a draw. But in the this is the file of rook's file. Yeah, there is a difference between the rook file and the knight file. The difference between the rook and knight file is because once you shift the line like this, I mean, you just change this line to this one. Then what happens? It is the bishop file. If you see from the like you can see from the left side of the board. So what we'll do is with the now there is no need to claim the seventh rank. We need to actually gain the claim. Like if you just change the board, then we need to have the what is this b file. So what we are doing actually is we have the rook file, but we want to change it to the bishop file. But of course not this one. This line we can never get it. So what we want to do is we want
You
to,
can do bishop b6.
yeah, this thing we want to achieve, this kind of position.
Bishop b6 and then
King here,
rook
bishop,
c8.
and king here. This we want to achieve. And this is actually easier to achieve. And you notice this will be the bishop file. So what we do is we just play a waiting move, forcing them to leave the seventh rank, go to the bottom somewhere.
Why not
Then
bishop b6?
why not? Bishop b6, there is a funny move, rook a7.
What? Stalemate.
I mean, you cannot take. Of course, you're not going to take it.
Okay, king b5.
Yeah, but the rook
Then
escapes
rook
on the
a5.
b7. Yeah, then we can do this. Yeah, it is playable. What we are just removing the ideas of any like stale meeting. So we are
Like, what will
first
bishop b6 lead to? Will it lead to a win or draw?
it will be lead to a win only. The
Okay,
better way to do is, I mean, you have to again do the thing that we are going to do. You have to first
okay,
force
okay.
the rook to go to the somewhere else, not stay in the seventh rank. And then, I mean, once you're playing b6, you have to again remove the bishop, let them go away, and then you have to execute the same thing. So it's winning, but you have to, you are just adding extra things. So you can move the rook anywhere, g file, h file. The idea is to let them just go away because now they cannot stay in the seventh rank. Of course, if they give check, we're just moving the king to the c6, and which anyway we are going to do. So let's say they play a waiting move. Now what we do is we first claim the sixth rank, and sixth rank we are using so that they cannot give check. And now we'll use the same technique. What we'll do is we'll go to the sixth rank, and we'll just reroute the bishop. And once we have achieved this position, bishop
Can you
f4.
start from the beginning? It went a bit fast.
Okay, we are simply rerouting the bishop to the position of bishop file. Okay, they give a check. Of course, we're not going to capture. They move the king. They give check. There is no. I mean, you can play any in any order. It doesn't matter. So you move the king, and this rook is answering that this rook cannot give check. And the whole idea is to reroute the bishop to d6, and we are just able to achieve. Once we achieve this position, now this is, you notice, you see it from this side of the board. Let's say you are playing from this side. Your opponent, you are here, and your opponent is on this side of the board. So this line is actually the bishop file. Yeah, and in the bishop file we know that it's winning, correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so exactly you have to do the same maneuver, but you have to change the perspective. That is the only thing. And it's winning,
Like
but
now, rook h2.
rook 2. This rook goes to somewhere. Where you see? I mean, wherever they go, it doesn't matter. They can give a check, even that doesn't gonna help us. Actually, it's way much faster. Rook h2 or h1, and there is just not enough defense of checkmating.
Yeah, rook h1, h2, whatever.
They can give a check, but then we have bishop c5, and we are threatening this checkmate. How they're going to stop it?
Mm-hmm.
They'll do this, right? Yeah. So I mean, you have to use the same technique. You can give a check, force them, and come to the seventh rank, and use the same technique to deliver checkmate. Okay, that won't be used in the bishop file. Okay, so with this one, this is over. What I'll do is I'll just show you, which I'm going to share you. This study I will share you. Can you see on the leeches? This
Yeah.
green leeches I'm sharing. Yeah. So I have covered here. I've also written clearly. I have covered all the lines in the 9 chapters, and these are actually very short chapters. If the rook goes to the eighth rank, what to do? So this position rook goes to the eighth rank, where we are able to win the game easily. And then I have covered what if the rook goes to king goes to c8, that is also losing, and we can win the game by playing rook to a7. Here very important move, rook a5, so that we protect the bishop and play king b6 later. So now king to b6. And the third one is rook e3. If the opponent plays the rook to the third rank immediately, then we'll be using this particular technique, rook check, and go to the other side, force them to escape, and after give check, king come back, and then we go to the fourth rank, and there is bishop e4 coming, which they cannot stop. And if they try to pin us, then rook g4 or h4. I mean, g4 is much more better, which makes sure that rook g1 is checkmate. And if the rook goes to the, let's say, second rank, we play a waiting move to force them to go to the first rank. Then we go to the other side of the board, forcing the rook go to the other side. But if the rook doesn't go to the other side, if there's just king comes, this one is actually winning much faster, because we can just play rook a7. This time they have to play rook b1, and then we can go to the other side of the board, f7, g7, h7, anywhere, forcing them to go to b8, and we are winning their rook only. And the next line we discussed, what happens if they bring the rook to first rank and then rook c. We play a waiting move, forcing them to go first rank. We go to the other side. They play rook c1, and then bishop b3. Very important, as mentioned. Now, again, they have better choice, rook c3. Yeah,
One move you are seeing is B3 move.
yeah. I didn't see. I just read from the book, and
No,
then
no.
I
So
didn't
that is
see.
the main concept of it is na ki we
This
have
is
to
very
use.
important move. Yeah, if you do not see this, then you cannot do checkmate. If opponent plays the best defensive move.
Okay, and if you move any other move here instead of B3, then it is
Yeah,
losing for white.
it's not losing. It's still winning, but you have to play this move again. So we'll run out of the moves.
Okay.
I mean, let's assume this position without the bishop, without the rook. We have a king and rook. It's always a checkmate as long as you have the rook. But if you do not know how to do checkmate, you cannot do checkmate. But still, it is a checkmate position. You can do checkmate.
Hmm.
But if you do not how to do checkmate, then you are never able to do checkmate. So you have to find out bishop b3 if opponent plays the best moves every single time. And if the king goes to c8, then we come to b4. And here you have to remember this particular maneuver. Go to the other side of the board, g4, h4, anywhere. And after rook goes to e1, then bishop f4. Very important. Okay, and if opponent play all the best moves, then we have to force him to go to the third rank, and then we uh, get the move from him. Now it's our turn. After they go to the same position, rook is in the third rank, king and bishop are well placed, and then we use the technique of checkmate, rook check, and rook g7 or h7, force them, go back, and then come to f4. And now, I mean, this move doesn't do anything. They block it, but it's actually winning. You can just go a4 and threaten checkmate, and they cannot stop it. In the bishop file, exactly same thing, no difference. In the knight file, it's a draw. We cannot make progress. In the rook file, we need to change the perspective to the bishop file again. We just need to come to the bishop file, and rook a6 you have to remember, so that you are able to maneuver your king and bishop to the bishop file. Now we are seeing from the left side of the board, right side of the board, and this line is the you can say bishop file. And once you have achieved this thing, you can execute the same technique checkmate. And actually this one is faster checkmate because the king is always in the corner.
Why can't we do this rook kind of maneuver in the knight file?
Okay, that's a tricky question. I cannot be doing, because we are running sort of the moves. Like you remember, we give a check, we come back, and after rook goes to c2, we are playing a waiting move. Rook goes
Mm.
to the first rank, and we are not able to go to this side of the board. We are not never able to force them to go to the third rank. So if you're not able to force them to go to the third rank, we are not able to win the game. And you might think, okay, then why can't we just maneuver our bishop and claim the other bishop file? So this is bishop file from the bottom
No,
side.
what if we move the king and then the bishop, like slowly?
Yeah. From both side, if you notice in this position, in both situation, you are
I-
on
I-
the
is there a possibility
you have to keep
like
the bishop here.
bishop c6,
Yeah.
then
No, no.
bishop
Try
c6,
to try
king
to remember.
c5,
Try to remember the ideal
king
position.
d6?
We cannot shift this thing. Firstly, this is not possible, right? There is no doubt in it. So we cannot go to this file.
No,
Now
like one by one, bishop c6, then a king move, then back,
see,
then king
this is never
d6.
possible. This is never possible. Are you
No,
getting me?
like diagonally only. Bishop c6, bishop d5.
Okay, so so let's see now. Either you have to go have this file, or you have to have this file, right?
Right.
But in both situations, the problem is you are not able to place the king here. Let's say you have this thing. So you want your king here, you want your bishop behind it, protecting it, and king here. But the problem is this bishop, you cannot place it here. It's a light square bishop, correct? On the previous problem, if you notice this bishop. This is a dark square bishop. That's why you are able to do this maneuver from rook file. Yeah, from the rook file, we are able to do this maneuver because we can play the bishop here and king here. But the same thing we cannot do in this one. We cannot place the bishop here, king
Well,
here.
can't we force the king to move?
You cannot. I mean, try to imagine this position. You have to either have this line or you have to have this line. In both situations, you have to have the bishop on the either on c5 or on
Dark sword.
d6. Yeah, which is just not possible.
So
In
for light
some,
sword, center it will work.
yeah, yeah, in the center it will work. You just force them to go to this
And
thing,
or
then it.
towards the king side, it's bishop f5 and king f6 and that king on f8.
I mean, the best
Then
thing you
it
can do
will
is
work.
to force them to go to the somewhere in the center, and then you can do it. But opponent is just gonna repeat, and you cannot do anything. Literally, you cannot do anything. He's just gonna repeat. He'll give check whenever possible, and you can try to achieve this, but then the king is able to escape. This is a draw, but you can try to achieve this position, and if you're able to force the king behind, then you can do checkmate. But actually, it is checkmate is not possible. The best thing you can do is, again, you force them to go to some other line. We achieve our bishop file, knight file, a bishop file, or the rook file, or the central lines. So their checkmate is possible. Okay. So you can, again, I have made some you can other studies, same studies, just to practice, like rook check, rook second rank. If they play a bad move, you go to the other side of the board. They give a check, you just block, and then you can do checkmate. And if they play any other line, let's say rook, we come to the second rank. If they play king c8, this one loses due to we go a7. They give check, we go c6, and they're attacking, but we give a check, and we come to the fifth rank to protect the bishop. Give a check, force them to go b8 and king b6. Rook defends the bishop, and we threaten checkmate. So you can practice the lines. If the rook goes directly to the third rank, then we have a same maneuver. Rook, yeah, rook direct. Okay, he didn't go to the third rank. He go to the first rank. So if he goes to the first rank, we play a waiting move. I mean, We can go G or H file. It's not taking. Okay, so he goes to the first rank, not the second rank. So he's a first rank. Now we need to force him to go to the third rank. To force him to go to the third rank, you remember the move?
Rook check.
No, not rook check. Bishop f3. That was the move, no? Force him
Bishop
to
f3.
go to the third
Yes,
rank.
yes, yes. Bishop
So
f3, rook e3.
yeah, now the rook has to go to e3. Once the rook is on e3, then we deliver checkmating ideas. But then he has to give a check,
Bishop c6.
and we reach to the bishop d5. And this is
Bishop
the
d4.
ideal situation
d5.
where we are able to, yeah, now the rook is in the third rank and we are able to execute the same checkmating pattern. Rook check, force him to go to the same side of rook. We go to the other side, b7 or a7. I don't think it matters. Yeah, it does not
a7,
matter.
b7.
Now we give check and
Now
come to
rook
the fourth.
f7 check and then rook f4.
And there is no difference. Okay, if they go to block it, then we have rook g4 checkmate. They take, we just take. Okay, same technique you have to go through these lines and you'll be able to practice. And once you are able to practice all this, you're never gonna forget it. Like they go to the second rank, we just play a waiting move so that they go to the first rank. They're in the first rank, so we need our rook on the G file, but the rook is not in the G file, F file. So we go to the other side of the board so that we force them to go to that side of the board. But since they have not gone, this move also loses quickly. The way to win the game is you go rook A7, and after that they bring the king. Now you go to the other side of the board, forcing them. I mean, you can go to any side. Yeah, forcing them to go to B8, and then you win the rook.
Now same.
No, not same. You win the rook.
I win the rook. Okay.
Yeah. So it's it might be complicated or mixed up things, but once you revise it, you'll be able to understand the ideas. Rook goes to the second. We play a waiting move. They go to the first rank. Then we go to the other side of the board. They also come. Now we play the bishop move, so force them to go to the third rank. In this situation, if they play king c8, not the rook move, then we go to the b4 with the idea
Then
of
rook
check.
b4.
Yeah,
Bishop
checkmate. They
e6 and rook
stopped
b8.
it. Now we can go to the g4 or h4.
g4 h4 also.
Yeah. So we are threatening checkmate this way. And if they stop this idea, then we have bishop a4. This was very
Bishop
important
f4.
idea. And in the end, we go rook b4. And it is an unstoppable checkmate, bishop d7 and followed by rook b8. Yeah, there is no defense. Everything is covered. And if they play, I mean, you can play against engine also. So engine will always play the top move, rook check, claim the second rank, seventh rank, play a waiting move so that they go to the first rank. We go to the other side of the board, forcing them to come to the other side. And now we play bishop b3, forcing him to go to the third rank. Then we had bishop e6, forcing them to give a check. We block back with the bishop. They come back to c3. And in this situation,
No,
we execute our
rook
checkmate
b4.
idea.
Okay, okay.
Once
d7.
the once the rook is in the third rank, then you execute your checkmate idea. They go to the same
d7.
side of uh, king,
Now
and we can go to
g7 h7.
g7 or h7. Yeah, I mean f7 is also working. You can go any side, and you give a check and come to the fourth rank. They pin you, but
b4.
then have a4. Yeah, now
a4.
a4 is checkmate. Yeah, I mean first b4, then a4. Okay, this is what Indian played with best precision. I mean with precise moves.
Yeah.
This checkmate in 21. Okay, this is 21.
This is easy.
Yeah, so I think you got all this thing. I will share you this study to you, all of you, and you can go through it. If you have any question, I will be happy to answer that. Anyone? Okay, where is Subhai? Yeah.
Any game like where it happened in
Yeah, it happened recently in the Grandmaster. There is a
one
player
I
named,
saw Magnus versus Jan combination also.
yeah, that happens many times. There was a recent game of Sabrarto Mani. I think his name is Sarbarto Mani. Yeah.